Star Wars Hunters is a good game, but a lot of people don't think so. In this video, we'll go over what the game is, the criticism it's received, and reasons why players are genuinely enjoying what the game has to offer. Enjoy the video. First, let me briefly catch you up to speed on what kind of game Star Wars Hunters is. Hunters is an arena shooter with multiple game modes. You play in teams of 4v4, and you play from a selection of characters among 3 class types. Those being damage, tank, and support class. The game itself is a third-person shooter with varying objectives. I'll explain all these elements in greater detail as we get to each point, but for now, let's get back to the topic of what criticism the game has gotten and why. There are a few main reasons why people have concerns about the game. People have expressed they don't like the art style, saying it looks like Fortnite. They don't like the platforms that the game is playable on, which are currently only mobile and Switch. There's dislike for characters themselves. People don't like the small map size, the short game modes, and the menu and the UI. So like, basically everything, right? Oh, and let's not forget that basically every review video calls the game rip-off Overwatch.
Overwatch.
And yeah, that's fair, you're not wrong. This seems pretty bleak for Star Wars Hunters. Even if all these people don't hate the exact same things, at least one person hates basically everything about the game. So, it's a bad game, right? Let's go over some of those critiques. For the art style, the negative feedback is mainly in terms of it feeling similar to the art style of Fortnite, which I understand, and people in my community have commented on the same thing. Some people have also said the characters themselves remind them of Overwatch characters with a Star Wars twist, and the game doesn't feel original enough. People say it feels cheap and flashy, not having the polish of newer Star Wars games like the new Battlefront and the Jedi Survivor series. This leads into a topic we'll come back to later, which is the criticism that the game is appealing to a younger audience and cares more about getting kids to play than actually making a quality game. But right now, let's go over the big main complaint that everybody has about Hunters. We're to just take the big one out first. The biggest criticism is the platforms the game is offered on. Right now, Hunters can only be played on mobile or Nintendo Switch. There are no versions available for PC, PlayStation, or Xbox, and there are no confirmed plans to ever make the game available on those platforms. I think the company did tease a little bit, like, yeah, the thought has crossed our minds to put it on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, but we're pretty sure we're not going to do that or something. It got a few people excited, but I don't see that happening anytime in the near future. Right now, if you want to play Hunters, you play it on mobile or you play it on Nintendo Switch. As far as people not liking this, I think the complaint mainly has to do with what the game is versus what the game was expected to be. Because of the comparisons to games like Overwatch and the fact that the game was made in Unreal Engine 5, it was assumed by the community that this game would primarily be a PC and console game, which was a fair assumption of people prior to the game's release. Looking at the game now that it's out, it seems that the intent of Hunters is to be a more casual pick up and play, and I would assume that's the reason why it's only out on mobile and Switch. You can literally pick those things up and play the game. I've seen a lot of people recommending BlueStacks, which is an Android emulator, to allow you to play Hunters on PC. From what I can tell, it does work, but people say it's kind of buggy. You can tell that the controls are not optimized for PC, and I would actually be kind of careful doing this, because I know that some other games are really strict about using emulators, and some games will actually ban accounts for you using emulators. So just be careful. I would not personally recommend BlueStacks, but I wanted to throw out there that other people are using BlueStacks to play on PC. Similar but different negative feedback the game has gotten is just the overall art style of the game. Some people don't like the characters, and I'll be talking about the characters again later in the video. There's also the character Aaron Tall, who's been criticized as the money grab character. Right now, he's the only character in the game that's behind a paywall. He's the cool Mandalorian, so he's kind of flashy, gimmicky. As for the free characters, I've seen people saying Otuni is dumb since he's just 2 Jawas in a trench coat. There's also a Jedi in the game called J3DI, and I saw a whole video where someone called this the dumbest thing they had ever seen. People also say Skora looks scary, and yeah, I'm actually with you on that one. She does look scary. She's supposed to be an alien Star Wars species called a Rodian, and no other Rodian in Star Wars looks like this. The first Rodian you see in Star Wars is Greedo. So this is him in the movies, this is him in the Battlefront game, this is him in the Clone Wars show. What happened? How did we mess up so badly here? Skora's eyes kind of make her look like she's just fueled by years of pure hate and anger, which is kind of ironic since she's like a healer / supporter character in this game. Her eyes are not the typical like round Rodian shape, and also the mouth and face is just kind of oddly wide and not like any other Rodian in Star Wars. So yeah, I get that one. Maybe fix that in the next update. Just make it less weird. That's enough of a summary of the hate that the game has gotten, so I want to move on to talking about why people are enjoying the game and some responses to that criticism. As far as the art style goes, I agree with the people saying let the game be what it's trying to be. Yes, for a PC console game, it looks a little Fortnite-y and a little kiddish. I get that. But for a mobile game, it's actually pretty high quality and tough competition for any other mobile shooter. And for what it's worth, it's pretty enjoyable playing on Switch, and it also looks pretty decent on a TV screen. Now I will say, having this on Switch but no other consoles and not PC was a questionable choice. Having it on just one console reinforces the feeling that there's no reason why it can't be played on other consoles and PC, and I think that's a big part of what's driving the frustration of the limited platforms, and also why this game is being judged against other console games and not other mobile games. I also know that one of the biggest criticisms of the Nintendo Switch as a console is that it can only run mobile game graphics, and anything more advanced makes it crash. Having a mobile game that runs only on Switch and nowhere else, in addition to mobile, kind of validates those people's complaints about the Switch, making it look like a mobile game player at console price, and I think that does reflect poorly on both the game and the Switch as a console. I'll have a little bit more to say about that later in the video. As for the characters, I think this game knows exactly what kind of game it is, and made some really good characters. A bunch of people said that 2 Jawas in a trench coat is stupid and sounds like the lead up for a joke, but that's exactly what it's supposed to be. I mean, look at that guy. He's ridiculous, and that's the entire point of his character design. And yeah, the droid who's programmed to think he's a Jedi being named J3DI seems kinda gimmicky, but the game is being exactly what it's trying to be with its characters. It's supposed to be fun, silly, easy to pick up and play with some silly bounty hunters to choose from. And those bounty hunters are still enjoyable to play with. Hearing the reviews from people who've actually sat down and played the game, this consensus seems to be it really is a fun game to play. People like the game the same way you can like this video. The blasters and lightsabers are satisfying to use, each character's ultimate is super fun, and the options of having casual and ranked mode lets you play at whatever speed you enjoy. I'm definitely not the best at this game, but I do still feel really cool when I somehow manage to be the top player on my team. And even though sometimes I only feel up to a casual game, the ranked progression is still really fun and gives you goals to work towards. And I do like playing ranked quite a bit. A lot of the hate that I mentioned earlier in this video is from people who either never actually played the game or played it just enough to make a review video and clickbaited it with something like, OMG, this Star Wars game is so bad, I'm actually crying right now, don't forget to subscribe. But the majority of players who gave the game a chance are still playing now, and still enjoying the game. Even if you don't know Star Wars, you're not a Star Wars fan, I think the gameplay is just objectively fun. Obviously the first wave of players and marketing is going to be almost exclusively for Star Wars fans, being a Star Wars game, but I still think this game has potential to just be fun and attract players who aren't necessarily huge Star Wars fans. People that just want to get in a squad, shoot some lasers, and I think that's great. I also want to point out that these character designs aren't bad compared to classic bounty hunters that all these Star Wars fans know and love. If Star Wars added the original set of bounty hunters and people saw them for the first time today, they would get absolutely dunked on. Which is silly, these guys are awesome. But you know it's true, and it's not because the old designs are bad, people just don't like new things, especially in the Star Wars space. I think the community will come around after some time, and I wouldn't be surprised if people have a lot of nostalgia for these new hunters a few years from now. And speaking of communities, I have a Discord community linked in the description if you are a non-toxic Star Wars fan, or just a game enjoyer in general. Also, if you subscribe during one of my live streams, my alert plays a little sound and you get to see your name on screen, and it's super cool. Anyway, I started giving some of my thoughts on the characters, or hunters, in this game, but now I want to give them to you in a little bit more detail. As I mentioned near the start of this video, there are 3 character classes. These are Damage, Tank, Supporter, and my personal favorite, Coming Soon. There's also kind of like 2 character subclasses, those being ranged characters and melee characters. Now, you don't start out with all of these characters at once. When you first boot up the game, the only character you start with is Imara Vex. They are a bounty hunter who, fun fact, has made some appearances in the comic books prior to this game. As you play, you progress through the Hunter's Path, and basically this is the game's way of showing you how each of the class types function, one at a time, and giving you something to work towards while you play, get XP, and unlock more characters. The fan favorite character so far is Sentinel, which is the second character you unlock. Pretty much all the community agrees that Sentinel is probably the best character in the game right now. I was just talking to my community about characters, and I think I'm in agreement that Sentinel is one of the most powerful characters regardless of how long you've played the game. That being said, the game is still really well balanced, and even if you have a great character, the games are won or lost depending on your skill level and your teamwork, not just who's playing the Sentinel. I also want to touch on the pay-to-win topic while we're going over balancing. There's a character called Aaron Tall. He's a Mandalorian with a jetpack, 2 blasters, and a flamethrower. He's the only character behind a paywall, and you have to spend $10 to get him. In most other games, this would definitely be a pay-to-win situation, and I've seen some people say this about hunters because of this guy right here. And honestly, he's just not very good. I mean, sure, he seems fun. I've flown around with him in the training level, which you can do without having to buy him first. But if you play ranked, I barely see anyone use this guy. So he's just definitely non-essential, and honestly, the other characters are more playable than he is. And all other transactions in the game are cosmetic only. So honestly, I don't see this game being pay to win right now. When I first started playing the game, I played almost exclusively Ymara, Vex, and Sentinel. But as I started to unlock more characters, I eventually switched over to maining J3, and I also play Reeve and Otuni as my backup characters. As of right now, I have all the characters unlocked. I just recently got Slingshot, the last character in the Hunter's Path, and I think if you play casually for 2 to 3 weeks, you can get all the characters without putting tons of hours or being at the top of the leaderboards. But I'm sure some of you have gotten all the characters much faster, so you can let me know in the comments how long it's taken you to unlock all the characters. I've heard a lot of people say the maps are too small and the game modes are too short. Most big games like this one that you play on PC or console are 20 to 30 minute game modes, and Hunters typically has about 5-minute game modes. I feel like I can't speak as objectively on this one because it's more of a preference, but I can say that I do enjoy the shorter games, and even though the maps are definitely smaller than some other games, the characters are designed for the size of these maps, and once you play, I think it all feels like the right amount of terrain for this game. The game modes themselves are all really fun too. They all have different names, but basically there's a team deathmatch, a capture 3 points on a map, capture 1 moving point on a map, and a game mode where you have to hold a droid named Trophy for longer than the other team before the time runs out. And then they also have event game modes, which change every few days. One event game mode spawns you as a random character, and sometimes this lets you play characters early that you haven't unlocked yet. And you can actually play as the Mandalorian guy even if you haven't bought him, which is pretty cool. As for gameplay, I've played almost entirely on Switch. I'm not very skilled on mobile controls, and I didn't super care for the default mobile aim assist, so I downloaded the game on my Switch almost immediately. Gameplay on the Switch is smooth and easy to use, the in-game HUD is pretty good, and the controls on a Switch Pro controller are really nice. If you're playing with an off-brand controller or holding the actual Switch console, the game allows you to use gyro aiming, and I've actually really enjoyed learning how to use that feature. I've never used gyroscopic controls in a game before, but I would highly recommend giving it a try, it's pretty fun. I do want to address that the game is not perfect, and there are people who have good opinions and reasons for not liking the game. I've seen a lot of hate that I don't think the game deserves, but there are links in the description to reviews and commentary that I thought was pretty good, some positive and some negative. It's still a mobile game with silly characters, and as I mentioned early in this video, some people just kind of feel like there's some potential, but it looks kind of like a kid's game, and they're just not interested in a mobile game even if it's available on Switch. And that is absolutely fair. Again, the creators I've linked in the description have good commentary, including their negative feedback. Some of them have different opinions than I do, but they have them for good reasons. The main issue for me is actually the UI. Everyone, even people who love the game, are complaining about the menu screen, and it's absolutely valid. There is so much going on visually. There's like 50 places to claim different rewards. It's almost impossible to navigate on controller, and overall it's just extremely overwhelming, hard to learn, and difficult to manage. I think as a game, the main thing that needs to be polished is just better UI, primarily for the menu. And some people have said this is pretty par for the course as far as mobile games go, and people who've played more mobile games than I have are saying it's honestly not too bad given it is a mobile game, but I just still think they can do better, and they should do a little better here. Especially with it being on Switch, which is my next point. Put this game on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation as well. If it was really only a mobile game, I'd get it, but I still don't fully understand the reasoning for it being only mobile and Switch. And as I stated earlier, it's just a strange pairing that I don't think reflects super well on the game or the console. And there would be so many more consistent players if they just expanded to all other platforms. I get that there might need to be some rebalancing, like PC players might have a big advantage over mobile players at the start, but I think it would be well worth it to figure something out and just expand it so that the game can be played on mobile, Switch, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So, where's the game going? It had some hate at launch, but now it actually has a consistent player base. People have made their reviews already, opinions have been formed, but what's this game going to look like in, I don't know, a year from now? We know the game's going to get updates. They've already teased adding new characters in the second season, and I can assume they'll continue to have seasons with unique content. So the game is getting updates. I don't see that changing, and I don't see the game losing interest or being forgotten about. I think it legitimately brought something new to Star Wars video games. However, if anything does kill this game, I think it'll be complaints. Not complaints about what the game is, but what a different game would have been. All the points I've made in this video can be condensed down to Hunters knows what kind of game it wants to be, and it's doing it well. People playing the game seem to enjoy it, but there are overwhelming complaints which seem to be focused on, I don't want Star Wars Hunters to be Star Wars Hunters, I want it to be Battlefront 3, a Republic Commando sequel, a new Force Unleashed game, and so on. Star Wars fans like the games that have already come out, and for years have wanted more sequels to those games. And I would also love to see sequels to all those games I mentioned. And there's nothing wrong with hoping we'll see more of those games. But I think if anything is going to hold back the longevity of Hunters, it won't be that it's a bad 4v4 arena fighter, because it isn't. It'll be that it isn't Battlefront 3.